Thank you, comrades. What a great meeting. The excellent presentations of my comrades allows me to be fairly succinct. For those of us who were waiting to see what would happen after the inauguration, and maybe it wouldn't be as bad as we worried, well, we know now. Trump has declared war on everybody several times a day with all these executive orders. And, well, what can one do but laugh? But it's very serious. It's a serious crisis that is unprecedented in recent history. This moving forward with building the wall, so-called, and this ban on Muslims, these are fascist acts. And I'm not saying that rhetorically, as in he's a fascist. These are fascist acts because they're not being done for practical reasons. They're being done for political reasons. It is to help Trump and those inside his regime who are neo-fascists rally on a racist, white supremacist, neo-fascist basis. That's what he's doing this for. Pay attention to what he's saying about the Black Lives Matter movement too. The first thing that he did when he reached the White House was put on the White House's webpage, we're going to change this anti-police atmosphere. That's basically a green light. The shit is on. Black people have targets on their back, especially the youth, but everybody, black and brown people. And I wouldn't laugh off the couple of times that he's mentioned, sending the government into Chicago. Right. I think that we should take everything he says serious because there's a political purpose behind it. It's scapegoating, and it's keeping his movement going. I think it's time to ratchet up the resistance. The other speakers have mentioned it. I think we should be thinking in terms of preparing for a general strike. Right. Now, some people might say that's unrealistic and only the labor movement could do that. And there's a lot that could be said about that. Yeah. But I will give you this example. When those millions of people came out on the 21st, most of them in this country, but in other countries, which I thought was great too, if their orientation was to just shut shit down instead of getting back on a bus or getting back on some form of transportation, that will give you an idea, perhaps a new idea of what, at least in part, a general strike could be. Most of us think of general strikes, naturally we think of workers walking off the job and shutting shit down. That's part of it. But you know what? People, if they're determined, can shut shit down. Occupations. May Day's coming. Maybe May Day can really be something, incredible. Not to forget International Women's Working Day, which is in March. We realize that right now the character of this struggle is defensive, and it's hard to know what demonstration to go to because there'll probably be several every day as long as he's issuing these orders against everybody. We'll have to go from one demo to another. We're going to have to think hard, comrades, about how we can ensure that we're not running all over the place. Some of that probably is inescapable. But if there's a way that we could coordinate things, definitely we should be moving in that direction. Even though we have to defend a lot of people, that does not contradict what I'm about to say. Our politics must be ambitious and offensive, and we must advance new ideas. Because if we don't do it, who the hell else is going to do it? The capitalist crisis is responsible for Trump. The capitalist crisis is responsible for Trump. He can't do a damn thing about it. He's a liar. But that's what's responsible for him. That and the fact that the neoliberals, bourgeoisie, has collapsed politically because here and all around the world, they have been the managers of this huge assault on the workers and oppressed. And now they're paying the political price. We believe in Workers' World Party that the people of the world, that history is demanding at this moment, that we open up a struggle against capitalism and for socialism. If we don't do it now, when? When will we do it? And who will we rely upon? Millions are waking up and attending some of these demonstrations. And I've heard what the other comrades mentioned about some of us who have been in the struggle having mixed feelings. Where were you? Where were you? Okay, that's understandable. But we're here now. And many of the people who are waking up, they can be radicalized too. If we reach out to them, and if we know how, and if we try, and if we talk about it amongst ourselves, well, this doesn't work, but that works. This is the challenge that we face, comrades and friends. There's no way of getting around it. You know, we don't want to isolate ourselves. We want to be with the militants, but we also want to be where the struggle is, whether that's coming from the unions or these other mass movements. This is the meat or the crux of what I have to say. We have to have some kind of guide moving forward. For the party, the first part of that guide is easy. We're trying like hell to build our party. And you should know that probably over the last 4 months, maybe more in the last 2 months since the election, we've almost doubled our membership around the country. But we understand that the party is not big enough, that what the party can do on its own is limited. We're going to be doing more in the name of Workers' World Party, because sometimes when some racist, white supremacist, misogynist act is done in the name of workers, you know what I mean? It's really good for a Workers' World Party to be, you know, the entity calling a demonstration against it to show that the workers are not, this is what the workers really think. However, our forces have to be stronger, and they have to be stronger ASAP. Therefore, what we are considering, and it's just a rough outline, is a call for a revolutionary united front. A united front, we don't know whether it should be against Trump or maybe it should be against fascism. And I'll tell you, I mean, we're all malleable and this has to be worked out. But because of what he did yesterday and this morning, I'm wondering whether fascism is more appropriate, you know. All these things can be changed. They're not written in stone. The reason why it might be good to say a revolutionary united front against fascism, if that turns out to be the name, is because, first and foremost, the people who are necessary and the groups who are necessary coming together and uniting are the communists and the socialists and the anti-capitalists and even the anarchists who can work with communists and socialists. And there are a lot who can. The anti-capitalists must come together. And particularly those political forces in marginalized and oppressed communities. Whether they're unionists, whether they're in Black Lives Matter, whether they're in the immigrant rights, ICE free, whether they're in LGBTQ or the women's movement or artists, we've got to come together. I'm not saying it's easy. Most of us on some level are narrow-minded and have a sectarian instinct. well, who's really going to, well, what, you want to say stuff and I got to follow you? I don't get a seat at the table. Let's go all through that and let's figure out a way to unite a revolutionary movement. And the objective of that movement is not to separate itself from the masses, but to influence the masses, to go into the mass movements and influence those movements, even though we will reserve the right to take some actions ourselves that tend to push protests into resistance. One of the tenets of such a front must be stopping the Democratic Party and the bourgeoisie from killing the movement. The Democratic Party is the graveyard of movements. Our first priority must be to understand, embrace, support, and defend the most oppressed. The Muslims, the immigrants, the women, the LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, and all the oppressed people that I haven't mentioned, not only here but around the world. We must reject dismissing oppressed people under this category. Well, that's identity politics. To the opposite, the oppressed people are the heart and soul of the working class. They are central to it. More than anyone else, they will bear the burden of making the revolution. That we can guarantee you. And so this is not about being politically correct. This is not about moralism and all that crap. This is smart. This is about blocking with those who are already in an advanced political position. The fact of the matter is, the other sectors of the working class need the oppressed. If they don't have the oppressed, they'll probably be paralyzed and in some instances go backwards. And as you can see, that ends up in with a very dangerous problem. We must win the youth. It's important. We must win all generations. But revolutions are not made without the youth. And we must be frank with each other. A lot of young people who are very militant and very brave and, shut down bridges and shut down highways and have gone to jail time and time and time again. Sometimes they look at people who call themselves socialists and communists as conservative. Well, you seem to want to just hold us back. You seem to want to tame us, We don't want to be tamed. We want to shut shit down, It's something for those of us who still consider ourselves revolutionaries, that's those of a certain age. We have to support the militancy of the youth. It's always there. It's always there, and it's healthy, and it's necessary, and we should not throw cold water on it on the basis of experience or something like that, Finally, we need to expand international solidarity. I mean, in a real way. We cannot have a conception of a nationwide struggle and that's it. The world's too small. Our class is united. In all human history, it's never been more able to communicate and work with each other. All of the boundaries, geographical, language, and likewise, they're there, but they're not as important as they used to be. And an example of that is the ability to have these demonstrations all around the world. There's another political reason for that. Because when our comrades and allies demonstrate on every continent, it tells all of the neo-fascists from Paris to Washington that we're not for your reactionary capitalist nationalism. We are together on a global basis, and our struggle is a global struggle. Over the many years that I've been a revolutionary, countless times, and not just me, a lot of the people in this room have heard about the necessity to construct a new revolutionary international. Well, comrades, that would be very difficult to do. Our late comrade Hugo Chavez was experimenting with it a few years ago. I think it was 2010 or 2011. Held a meeting, in Caracas. I don't know what happened. I don't think it went well. I think there were too many people fighting. So the point is, it's not easy to do that. But somebody has got to take the first step. Somebody's got to begin talking to their comrades around the world with a new mindset, pushing aside old prejudices, pushing aside whatever it was that was a block or something that held them back. I know that this is unrealistic, perhaps. People are so sectarian and so weary, and the history is full of that. We could talk about the political differences, and we could just talk about how people don't work with each other out of just stupidity, frankly, But whatever the challenge, this crisis that we face in the wake of the Trump phenomena should be a reason for everybody around the world who wants a revolution and who wants to be in touch with revolutionaries around the world to reconsider this question of a new international. And we realize that our party can't do it alone. No one would take it serious. However, we're going to make damn sure that people begin taking the idea of the necessity for a new international very, very serious. And it's a good year to do it. You know why? Because this year will mark the 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution.